Well, welcome to Movie Reviews on Pure 24/7 Radio. I'm Nathan Thomas, and I'm joined as ever by my good friend Andy Godfrey. Hello, Andy.
Hi, Nathan. And we have proved something this week, haven't we? We have proved that the very best people are always born in August.
Very true.
You had your birthday and I had my birthday, and that was exciting. So the best people are born in August. Sorry, everybody else listening, but it's true.
Yes, very true. I mean, I can actually think of a couple of other people who were born in August that I know. My little
Yes.
brother, he's celebrating his
Yes.
birthday in August, and my grandmother, she also celebrates her birthday in August.
So there you go. You see, this proves the point. In fact, my brother was born in August on the same day as me, only 2 years later.
Wow.
So we share the same birthday. So for 60 odd years, he's been saying that he is the best birthday present I ever had. And I always respond by saying, no, when I was 13, I was given a cassette recorder that I really liked.
Well, fair enough.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I can imagine that must be
Happy
interesting.
birthday to us.
Yes, indeed. It's great to see you again, and good to be back to talk about the latest in the world of cinema, and of course on TV and streaming. We'll look at what's come out in cinema, what's streaming, and obviously, and also we'll find out about a must see for this weekend. So do tune in, do listening carefully as we find out about Andy Godfrey's thoughts on all the latest movies. Where do you want to start, Andy?
I want to start with some new films that are out in the cinema.
Okay.
Okay, let's do that. So I got to see two new films this week that are out in cinema. We'll mention two more that are coming out today, just so people know what they are. Um, so let's start with The Legend of Oki. Now, this is a new, I think it's really a children's film. It's got a 12A certificate. That's because there's the odd bit of bad language and there's the odd bit of emotional distress, as it's
Okay.
called. So we are on a jungle island in the middle of the Black Sea. It's a fantasy island. This is based on a best-selling children's book. And we zoom in on a village. And the villagers seem to be living quite happy, normal lives. They are, cutting down trees, they're growing fruit, they are just going about their ordinary business, farming the land to survive. However, what we quickly learn is that this village is being terrorized by a series of monsters called the Ochi. The Ochi. Now, a few weeks ago, we were talking about How to Train Your Dragon,
Yeah.
which a Viking village was being terrorized by a dragon, and the little boy in the film goes off and he befriends one of the dragons. Okay, this is so similar; it's unbelievable. This is almost a carbon copy of the plot. So the chief of the village is taking children out during the day and young people to hunt down these monsters that are attacking his village every night, but he can't find their nest. He can't find their nest. One day he takes his daughter, who is about 13, on one of these hunts to find these monsters. Still can't find the nest, but what she finds is a little baby Olchi. And man alive, have they gone out of their way to make him cute. I mean, people who've seen Gremlins will remember Gizmo. He really looks like Gizmo before all the monsters started coming out of him, He is so cute. And she takes this little baby. She realizes that the baby's lost. He's been separated from his parents. He's actually been caught in one of the traps that they've laid for the monsters. And she takes it home. She doesn't tell her father. She secretly starts to look after it and feed it. And then she decides that she's going to take it back to its parents. She's going to go and try and find the nest. And maybe if we can return the baby, mum and dad and the other monsters might stop attacking us. Okay. This is a plot that we've seen many, many times before. In fact, there were elements of the plot that reminded me of E.T., really, because E.T. is an ugly little alien who is found by a little boy, and all E.T. wants to do is go home. And all this little girl in this film wants to do is take the little Ochi home. So we've seen it done before. There was nothing new about it. There was nothing original about it. For me, as a grown up, there was nothing particularly exciting about it. That said, I came out and I immediately wrote a review for the film group that I write for. And I said, I think children will probably love this because it's a proper children's family film, even though it's a 12A certificate. I mean, I'm pretty sure that most 8-year-olds I know could handle this, but I don't want to go against that guidance because it is a 12A. So 12A means children under 12 could go in as long as they're accompanied by an adult.
Yeah.
It's got a beautiful, beautiful score, sort of jungle type score, jungle beats going on. The cast is really good. I mean, the little girl who finds, I think it's her first ever time before the cameras, first ever movie. She is really, really good. As I say, the little baby creature itself is so cute. You just want to pick her up. It's like a koala bear type thing, you know. I'd say, like, it really reminded me of Gizmo from Gremlins. I thought it was great. I thought it was fine for children. Didn't do much for me because I've seen that story 101 times before. You know, an
Okay.
alien creature who wants to get home and a human helps him. So even Lilo and Stitch to some extent, which we've been talking about a lot. Even that's got, in a way, the same kind of plot in that Stitch comes to Earth and Lilo's trying to help him to get home. Elio, same sort of thing. So we've seen the story done before. All I can say is it's well done. The kids in the audience that I saw it with seem to be enjoying it very much and having a good time. So that's The Legend of Ochi. If you're at school holidays, if you're looking to take the kids out for a treat, if you're looking to take them to the cinema, grandma will enjoy this as well as the kids. You know, it's just a lovely, cute little film, but don't expect too much surprises because we have seen this story told 101 times before. The other film that came out this week is a comedy, loosely called a comedy. Now, I have got friends who told me that I'm wrong, that this is one of the great comedies. And this particular film, they laughed all the way through it. Okay. I've got other friends who didn't laugh at all. Mark Kermode, who is my friend, but is probably the leading film critic in this country, he said he laughed once. Well, I think I've got a lot of firepower on my side here. It's a
Okay.
Marmite movie that has divided people on my film group absolutely down the middle between those who laughed a lot and those of us who didn't. My friend, as I say, my friend Mark Kermode said he laughed once. I must have blinked or been asleep at the bit he laughed at. So let me tell you what it is. It's called The Naked Gun. So back in 1980, a team of three men who were going to become very famous in the film world, David and Jerry Zucker and Jim Abrahams, produced a film called Airplane. And Airplane was a kind of parody of disaster movies. And I remember seeing it, I thought it was very, very funny. There's some great lines. You know, we've got to get these sick people to a hospital. A hospital, what is it, doctor? It's a big building where they put sick people, but that's not important right now. It was zany, wacky humour that on that sort of level, puns all down the line, and I quite enjoyed it. And even during the end credits, there were jokes. So if you watch Airplane, stay for the end credits because halfway down it'll just simply say in the list of names, Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. They just put things like that for no reason at all in the end credits. The same team then went on to produce a parody of police dramas. So there was a lot of police dramas in the early 80s. You know, we had Starsky and Hutch and we had Cannon and we had so many. We had the Sweeney in this country and others. And I said, let's do a parody of police at work. And what they did was they produced a TV series called Police Squad. Unfortunately, it got cancelled after 6 episodes because it wasn't really selling. It wasn't really working. However, they said, we've still got this premise of taking the mickey out of the police and criminals and doing a parody of police movies. Let's make a movie out of this. Let's take the material we've got and see if we can reform it into a movie. They ended up making 4 movies and they called them The Naked Gun. So we had The Naked Gun, The Naked Gun 2, Naked Gun 3. Each one starred Leslie Nielsen, who had also starred in the film Airplane. Now, Leslie Nielsen was a very serious actor. He was a Shakespearean actor. You know, he was a very serious actor. And they thought, wouldn't it be great with Airplane if we could get a very, very serious actor, somebody who's known and famous for being a serious actor? Wouldn't it be great if we could get him just to be a parody of himself and do zany stuff and be funny? And you know, that the audience wouldn't be expecting that. And Liam Neeson starred in Airplane. He went on to star in the Police Squad TV series, only 6 episodes, and he went on to star in the Naked Gun movies. And also, the other star of the Naked Gun movies was Priscilla Presley. So it was a parody of police. Now, his name was Leslie Nielsen. We now have the actor Liam Neeson, no relation, who stars in a new version of the police parody, The Naked Gun. And basically, he's playing the son of the cop from the earlier films, who has become a cop himself, who's become a detective himself.
Yeah.
Now, I walked out of that. When did I see that? I saw that, I think it was on Monday. I can't tell you without looking at what the plot was. I instantly forgot it. I instantly forgot any of the jokes. I mean, I still remember jokes from the Naked Gun movies in the 80s. I still could tell you many of the jokes from Airplane that was 19 because they were genuinely funny, they were genuinely original, and they really did make you laugh. But this new version, now people tell me I'm wrong. You know, people tell Mark Commode that he's wrong. I didn't laugh once, and nobody in the screening that I was with. Every joke just seemed to fall flat. There's a very elongated fantasy sequence set at Christmas about a snowman coming to life, Frosty the snowman coming to life. It goes on too long. It's initially, you start to smile and think, yeah, this is quite funny. But it goes on and on and on. You think, move on. And it's got nothing to do with the plot, whatever the plot was. Because I can't tell you what the plot was because it's rubbish. And I just sat there and I thought, I went in with high hopes because I love the Naked Gun movies. I love the Airplane movies, but different set of producers, different set of writers. People have fallen under the charms of this one. Some people I know. I didn't laugh once. I just thought it was terrible. So there you go. And then just to mention two films that are out today, one I'm hoping to see tonight. So there's a new science fiction film coming out called Weapons. And all I will say about this is that at 2:17, one particular night in a Welsh village, all the children disappear. Just the children. And they all go to the same school. That's all I know. That's all I'm going to say. We'll review it in full next week, and I'll tell you more about it. The other one that's coming out might be of interest to music fans listening. And, you know, we've got music fans listening to Pure. So a long time ago, Eminem, the rapper, released a song called Stan. It was about an obsessive fan who was stalking him. Okay. They've now turned that song into a movie, which I will try and see so we can talk about. I'm not a big fan of rap and rapping and, you know, I like wrapping up Christmas presents, but I don't like the I can never pronounce it properly anyway. I'm not a big Eminem fan. I've got to be honest. This is not my type of music. Give me Bruce Springsteen and the Beatles any day. I'm not a fan of that type of music. However, they've taken this song, which was about, as I say, an obsessive fan, a stalker, and they've turned it into a movie. So it should be quite interesting. So that's out today as well. And there's your cinema.
Brilliant.
Treat.
Well,
Superman, Fantastic Four, still out there, of course, still doing well.
yes, I've heard lots about them. There's still raving reviews on both of those, and interesting.
Terrific.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about them. I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing them soon. But interesting you should mention that one about Naked Gun. I know that obviously that's a long-standing franchise, and obviously they decided to pick it up again. Interestingly enough, taking it like a generation on, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean, the basic plot makes sense. You know, that aspect of it, but I don't know. I can't even remember what the plot was about. It was about some criminals trying to steal something. You know, it just didn't connect with me. It was like I was watching it, but I was waiting for a laugh, and a laugh didn't come. And a laugh. Sometimes you do this with horror films. I sit there and watch a horror film. Come on, and scare me, and the end credits come up. And you go, what? You know, if people are going to see the Naked Gun, there is a scene halfway through the end credits.
Okay, that's good to know.
The end credits, yeah, because they're clearly assuming that this one is a success. They're clearly going to do more.
Okay.
But the basic idea of taking a serious actor and making him into a comedian, it was a really good one. But I think it's worn a bit thin by now because we all know it, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, Leslie Nielsen, who was in the earlier films, I mean, he was in a film called Forbidden Planet in 1959, which is generally regarded as one of the best science fiction movies ever made. He played the captain of a spaceship, a Captain Kirk type character. And Forbidden Planet is an exceptionally brilliant science fiction film. But there you go. It is out there. I've been told by some of my friends that I'm wrong, that they laughed and laughed and laughed. I didn't. It just didn't strike me as funny.
Okay, well, fair enough. I mean, as we always say, movies are a very subjective thing. So in some cases, I suppose certain humor will help others, but not this will help some, but not others. So maybe that's
Yeah,
what's happening in this case. It just doesn't
yeah,
really make some laugh, but it would, in the same way that certain things like we call it dark or black humor,
yeah,
it's not so funny to some people. It would be brilliant to others. It depends on your background, depends on your
yeah,
perspective.
yeah. I mean, I do like my humour to be a little bit more subtle. I mean, that said, the funniest film for me ever made is Some Like It Hot, which was 1956 off the top of my head, Marilyn Monroe and Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon. And Tony Curtis and Jack Lemmon have witnessed a gang killing somebody. And in order to, the gang are chasing them. And in order to hide from the gang, they dress up as girls and join an all-girl singing group. And it's very, very, very funny film. It is genuinely funny. I think in Naked Gun, this one, some of the jokes are a bit too obvious.
Ah,
It was almost as if you knew what he was going to say. You knew the punchline before he said it. And it didn't smack to me of there being anything original in it. But I'm told I'm wrong. So what do I know? You know, I'm glad. I'm really, really glad for people who are enjoying it. Because when you pay your money to go and see a film, you nobody ever wants any film to be bad.
no.
Well, you just do not want a film to be bad. Can I mention one of the films out today very briefly? Because
Yeah,
a friend
sure.
of mine is going to see this and they do listen to Pure. So in 2003, Disney released a film called Freaky Friday. Don't know if you ever saw that one. It starred Leslie Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis as a mother and daughter. And what happens in this film is they swap bodies. So the mother goes into the daughter's body, the daughter goes into the mother's body, and these two have never gotten on, but they begin to learn about each other's lives. Okay, it was called Freaky Friday. I knew I wanted to mention this. I'm sorry I didn't. It was called Freaky Friday. It was a body swap movie. Coming out today from Disney is a film called Freakier Friday. And somehow they've managed to reunite the same cast all these years later. So we're talking 22 years later. They've got the same cast back together. They've made a film called Freakier Friday. I had a message this week from a friend of mine saying, "Have you seen Freakier Friday yet, Andy?" No, I haven't, because she loves the first one. So that's out today. It's a new Disney film out, and again, it does involve body swapping, and body swapping films can be quite good fun. And the first one was good fun. I did laugh at the first one, and I
Yeah.
enjoyed it. But we're talking all the way back 2003, and it's interesting that Hollywood and Disney and others keep driving back into their past. Because I've talked to you about the lack of originality in Hollywood.
Mm.
So many sequels. So Naked Gun is obviously a sequel or a reboot. I mean, the last Naked Gun movie was 1994.
Wow.
So we've gone from 94 to 2025 with the gap between the films. With Freaky Friday 2003, 22-year gap between them, but they have reunited the same cast. So I enjoyed the first one. I like the first one. I'm hoping I'm going to like this one.
All right. Brilliant. So that is our cinema reviews for today. We'll move on to TV and streaming in just a moment. And we are back for movie reviews part two. We are moving on to TV and streaming. Hello, Andy. What's up next?
Well, as ever, Nathan, when you look through the TV listings and you look at what's coming to streaming, there's a whole lot of really great films. So you've always said to me, we maybe we should recommend four, and we'll try to do four that are across the board. Okay.
All right.
So I just want to say that last week we talked about Back to the Future Part 2. The week before we talked about Back to the Future. This week, Back to the Future Part 3 is showing on BBC One on Saturday at tea time. Now, I was never a big fan of Back to the Future Part 3 when initially. I remember going to see Back to the Future Part 2, and right at the end of Back to the Future Part 2, you have a trailer for Back to the Future Part 3. So we see scenes because the two films were shot simultaneously. So Doc is in the Old West. The time machine at the end of Part 2 hit a bolt of lightning, or a bolt of lightning hit the time machine, sent Doc back into the Old West. He buries the time machine. He leaves instructions for Marty and the 1950s Doc Brown as to where to find it. They find it. And the idea is Marty's going to go home and Doc will live out his days in the Old West. However, they discover that in the Old West, Doc Brown gets shot. And so Marty goes back into the Old West to try and save Doc Brown's life. Now, when I first saw this, I thought, oh, yeah, it's okay. I quite enjoyed it. But a few years ago, they did a special night at My Cineworld where we had all three films on back to back. And that was the date that Marty went back to in the future had arrived. And so we saw Back to the Future, Back to the Future Part 2, and Back to the Future Part 3 back to back. in one night. And it was the first time I'd seen Back to the Future Part 3 at the cinema since it originally came out. I'd seen it on DVD and TV and Blu-ray, but I hadn't seen it in the cinema since it originally came out. And I actually changed my mind on it. I actually realized what a special film it is. It's a really good film. The Western vistas where they choose to shoot it, when you see them on the big screen, in widescreen, absolutely sensational.
Yeah.
And it just looks wonderful. And I changed my mind on Back to the Future Part 3 because for many, many years, having seen it originally when it came out, I was thinking, oh, it's okay, it's okay. When I saw it again on the big screen, I went, wow, this is really good, really good. And of course, it wasn't the end of Back to the Future because there was an animated series afterwards, short-lived animated series featuring, which you can get, featuring Doc Brown's and Clara's kids. And then, of course, now in London, we've got Back to the Future, the musical, which is so worthwhile. So if you're ever in London, just go and see Back to the Future, the musical. It's fantastic. So Back to the Future is on. Earlier on, and I'm just going with ones for another one for adults. Well, Back to the Future Part 3, kids will enjoy it as well. But earlier on in the day, on BBC Two at 1 o'clock, is Dr. Zhivago. Now, this is one regarded as one of the greatest movies ever made. It was made in 1965, so I was about 3 at the time this came out. It tells the story of a Russian Tsar who falls in love with a nurse and causes scandal because Russian Tsars are high up and they're posh people and they're very rich, and you don't fall in love with the lower classes, you know, and they have a relationship. It is one of the most beautifully shot films of all time. There is a scene set in winter in a log cabin where you actually believe that they're not in a studio. They are in a log cabin in the middle of winter. It just looks stunning. The vistas are beautiful. Omar Sharif plays the rich Russian Tsar who falls in love with the nurse. And then towards the end of the film, the Russian Revolution breaks out, where the peasants are revolting against the Tsars. And so obviously he's now a target for being killed by the peasants in the Russian Revolution of 1917. So it is historically interesting. It's beautifully acted, beautifully won no end of Oscars, really did. And that is a great film. Dr. Zhivago, one of the classics. And then my third one, I'm going for a film from 2016, starring one of my favourite actresses, Nicole Kidman. So I'm going for a film called Lion. So what happens in Lion is that two very, poor Indian boys from a poor community, you know, they're scrambling to find food and so on. You can imagine the scene. We don't, two very poor Indian boys decide to play hide and seek in a railway station just to keep themselves amused. One of them, the younger one, gets on a train. And what we discover, and the train starts moving. And this is based on a true story. And he can't get off the train. And the train travels many, many, many hundreds of miles away. And he can't get off. You know, there's a long way before it stops. If he does get off, what's he going to do? He doesn't, he's a little boy. He's totally confused. And eventually an Australian couple take him in when they found him on the streets of Calcutta. So the train goes right into Calcutta. He does jump off the plane. He's a street urchin. He's got no money. He doesn't know how to get back home. He doesn't even know where his home is. He doesn't know what his home's called, his home village. And they find this little boy, Nicole Kidman and her husband. They take him in and they look after him. It's a bit of a weepy. You need a box of tissues when you're watching this. I certainly was weeping when I sat and watched it in the cinema, because as the little boy grows up, he says, well, I've got to find where I came from. There must be a way, given the internet and everything else, there must be a way to find out who my real parents are, because he begins to realize that, Calcutta is not his home and his home is somewhere else. And again, at the end of the film, we meet the real people involved. It's a weepy. It's a real weepy. But if you want a film about love, a film about kindness, a film about generosity, a film about being open-hearted towards strangers, all the things that Christians are supposed to do, but which humans do anyway. It is a lovely, lovely film. I cried when I sat and watched it in the cinema. Really good. And then the fourth one that I'm going to say, well, actually, there are going to be two more, because what one of them that's coming. It's got to come every week. But the fourth one is Titanic. Now, Titanic, a lot of people will have seen it. It's on E4 on Sunday afternoon. James Cameron's great epic. I went on my birthday this week to see the I think called the legendary Titanic immersive experience, and you put on 3D goggles and you can actually walk around the ship. It's incredible, and you realise how massive, massive, massive this ship was. Okay, but Titanic is on. Bit of a weepy again. And by the way, at the end of the film, when she's lying on a bit of wreckage and he's in the water and they're telling each other how much he loves her, that bit of wreckage is big enough for both of them. All he has to do is get on board, but he doesn't. He sinks. So, it's just crazy at the end. But Titanic is on. And then we will mention this one. There is, of course, a James Bond movie on this weekend. So there are two James Bond movies on this weekend. You Only Live For Your Eyes Only, which is for me the best Roger Moore film, is on Sunday on ITV. And then on ITV on Saturday night, we've got No Time to Die, which is the last James Bond film. And people will know what happens in that film.
Yes.
To James Bond. I remember my brother going to see it. I had seen it a few times. And my brother ringing me up, he'd just come out of the cinema and he said, they can't do that to James Bond. They can't do that to James Bond. They can't do it. Yes, they can. James Bond's only human after all. I'm a bit of an aficionado when it comes to Bond. I mean, I have so many books on James Bond and all the films, and I've read all the novels, and I love James Bond. So this film was a bit of a shocker. No Time to Die, but it's a good story. It's worth seeing. It's a great film. There are so many references in No Time to Die to other Bond films. And the second time I saw it, it was like I took in a checklist. Yes, there's a reference to Dr. No, there's a reference to Goldfinger, there's a reference to Living Daylights, there's a reference to on Her Majesty's Secret Service, definitely. But I saw it originally at midnight, at a midnight screening. So that would be one of the, I could see it would be one of the first screenings ever to see it. And I loved it. And I really loved it. And I think what they did with Bond, they opened up a whole new world by having him die so that they can now go back in the past and tell stories, and we await with interest the next one. But films of the week on TV, Dr. Zhivago, Back to the Future, No Time to Die, Titanic, and Lion, film about a lost little boy in India taken in by an Australian couple who love him and care for him and help him find his real family.
Wow. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Andy. So some great films there. I must confess, I'm not totally in agreement on the last James Bond film. Personally,
Okay.
I think it would have been better if he hadn't died, but that's just my opinion.
Okay. What I think, okay, no, lots of people agree with you. Lots of people will agree with you, including my brother. But what I think is what the character, if we say James Bond is only human, which he is,
Yeah.
he should have died in the first film. He should have died in the second film. He should, how long can you go on showing a man escape death? But very cleverly, right at the end of the last one, they had Bond's lover and his little girl, because we know he had a child with her. And the mother says to the little girl, I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to tell you a story about a man called Bond, James Bond. And that line was put in there very deliberately to give them a link. Now we can go back in the past. Now we can tell whatever story we want about James Bond's past.
Yeah.
We can go right back to the days when he was a young man. We can start again. We can see him before he became a 00 agent. And Casino Royale, the first of the Daniel Craig films, starts with him earning his 00 number in the middle of a mission. We're never told what that mission was. They can go back and film that. They can bring back any characters they want, because we're going back into Bond's past. And then we will have to go back into Bond's past because he's dead.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
Whereas I think, I take your point. Obviously, nobody wants to see. I wept like crazy when Captain Kirk died in Star Trek Generations.
Yeah.
I've got friends who wept like crazy when Han Solo died in Star Wars: The Force Awakens.
Yeah.
Superman died in one of the films but he was resurrected. So let's wait and see. It might be the best. It might turn out to be the worst thing they ever did, killing Bond. It might turn out to be the best thing they ever did, because we can go right back into his past and begin the story from scratch and tell stories we've never seen about 007.
Yeah, very true. Well, we better move on to the next and final part, but it's fascinating talking about that sort of thing. I mean, obviously, there was a lot of, I guess there's arguments on both sides and a lot of debate, but like Marmite, you either love or hate that ending, but we'll see how it progresses. I understand there's plans for future films. Anyway, we better move on to the next part. So we'll be back in a minute with a must-see. And we are back for the final part of movie reviews. I'm here with Andy Godfrey, as always, talking about the latest in the world of cinema and also finding out what is on TV and streaming. And it's a good selection. As always, you've told us about a couple of Bond movies we can watch on TV, some good films in cinema, apparently, good for children and good for adults as well. So brilliant stuff so far. What would be your must see, though, for us this weekend?
My must see this weekend, Nathan, is on BBC One at 3 o'clock on Sunday afternoon.
Okay.
You going for this? I'm going for the Shaun the Sheep movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah, now, I'd love people to watch the Bonds. I want people to watch the Bonds. I want people to watch Back to the Future Part 3. I want people to go to the cinema and see, the Legend of Ochi and all the rest of it. But Shaun the Sheep is a creation of Aardman, who, of course, gave us Wallace and Gromit and Chicken Run and, those other films. I love this movie so much, and the character of Shaun the Sheep. It almost comes on like a silent movie because these characters don't talk, as opposed to the characters in Wallace and Gromit that talk. This one was made in 2015, and the poor old farmer who looks after Shaun the Sheep and his mates is always being confused by what's going on. And there's a lovely scene where Shaun the Sheep and his mates are trying to escape from the farm because of something that's happened, and I'm not going to tell you what it is. The farmer's in the field, and they think, how can we escape? The farmer's here, he's got his eyes on us. So they start walking towards the sheep pen, and the farmer goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And when they get in the sheep pen, they run round and they come back behind his back and back again. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Run round. And the old adage about counting sheep to help you go to sleep, he goes to sleep. Just as they're going around in a circle round him, and he's trying to count them. And he's going, I haven't got more than 15 sheep, 15, 16, 17. He drops off. And I just thought Shaun the Sheep as a movie was, I hadn't seen much of the TV series, I'll be honest. I mean, I hadn't, because it was on CBBC and CBBS, and, I hadn't seen the TV series. But when I went to see Shaun the Sheep, the movie, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was, as I say, it comes on like a silent movie because these characters do not talk, really. And it's just great fun. It's just hilarious. And they made a second Shaun the Sheep movie a few years later, which involved aliens.
Yeah.
Shaun meeting aliens, which was, you obviously see it, which again was just great fun. Lots of jokes at the expense of Close Encounters of the Third Kind in that film. But Shaun the Sheep, the original, the movie, would be my must see. I mean, I think it is a must see. I think it's just hilarious. And again, the fact that it's on at 3 o'clock on Sunday afternoon, have your Sunday dinner, get home from church, maybe have your Sunday dinner, get a bowl of popcorn or something, sit down with the kids, watch Shaun the Sheep, the movie, and it's only an hour and 20 minutes long, but just have a really great time. And
Yeah.
don't go to sleep when you're counting the sheep.
That is a real danger. I must say, I absolutely love Shaun the Sheep. I
Yeah.
grew up watching it. I must have seen most of the individual episodes, and they're just absolutely fantastic. I was really thrilled to see when a movie came out, and even more thrilled when a second one came out. Both of
Yeah.
which I think just excellent. There's something special about Shaun the Sheep because obviously they don't actually talk. So the way they hold your attention is by what they get up to, the mischief and
Yeah.
the trouble and the jokes. And as you say, there are constant references to various pop culture references
Yeah.
in Shaun the Sheep. And
Yeah.
of course, Aardman's produced so many great films, including Shaun the Sheep and Wallace and Gromit and such.
Yeah, well, I mean, the last Wallace the Gromit film was the big treat for Christmas Day that
Yeah.
we had last year, and I loved it. That was that they brought back the penguin. I just thought that was great. I've always loved Aardman's stuff. I mean, they had a tragedy. They're based in Bristol. And they had a big tragedy some years ago where fire and burned down a lot of their sets, and a lot of the stuff that they made was destroyed. But
Oh,
they didn't get despondent. They didn't get down. They just kept on making really good programs and really good films, and their sense of humor. And a film like Shaun the Sheep, you almost have to watch it 3 or 4 times to get all the background jokes.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's true with all of their output. There's stuff going on in the background. Maybe a book that Gromit is reading. Hang on, what was that title? And you push it, and it's something very fun. You push pause, and it's something very funny. And yeah. I mean, I've just been a massive, massive fan of their output. Although I didn't see the TV show, I think probably because I was watching other stuff and I couldn't. I wasn't going to put CBs on. But when the movie came out, I thought both movies. I mean, if you can find the other one online, Uh, um, watch both back to back because they're great fun.
Yeah, brilliant. Absolutely true. And as you say, I do have great respect for the people at Aardman for many reasons, actually. I seem to recall one point they actually managed to rescue a particular cheese making factory because it was
Uh,
closing down for some reason, and they managed to work
Save
with
it.
them to save it, which is brilliant. And of course,
Absolutely.
great respect for the fact that, I mean, the commitment and the detail and the
Yeah.
meticulous detail they put into each and every scene,
Well,
it's
these films
impressive.
take years to make.
Yeah,
And, you're moving a puppet's leg and it takes 14 hours, but it's half a second on screen, you
exactly.
know. And I think my favorite of all the almonds, if I'm honest, was Chicken Run. I
Okay.
absolutely loved Chicken Run. I
That
thought
is
it
a
was
good one.
just, and that film parodies everything from Raiders of the Lost Ark to The Great Escape to everything. And I just really loved chicken. I wasn't so enamored by the second Chicken Run they did. Didn't think it was quite as good as the first one, but the first Chicken Run was great, and certainly the two Shaun the Sheep movies are really outstanding. And I think they're must sees.
Okay. Brilliant. So that is our must see for today on movie reviews. Shaun the Sheep, the movie. Thank you so much, Andy. It's been a pleasure as
Okay.
always. Have a great
Okay.
weekend.
And you, Nathan, you take care, my friend. God bless and God bless everybody listening.
3 Point Pure? No bad language, nothing immoral, nothing illegal. Here at Pure 24/7 Radio, we make sure we're always 3 Point Pure. That means music without bad language and songs that don't promote anything illegal or immoral. If that sounds like something you enjoy, then support us financially so others can enjoy it too. Just head over to pure247radio.org/donate. That's pure247radio.org/donate and help us make the world a better place with our 3 Point Pure standards. Providing something for free costs somebody something, but doing nothing costs someone something too. So support us financially and let's walk together and brighten the lives of others. Everything we do at Pure 24/7 Radio is funded by your donations. Thank you.